What's the best way to learn art? Well, to find the answer to this question, I invited my friend, Scott Christensen, to join me for a chat in my studio. He has 30 plus years of teaching, as do I, and we compare and contrast the different ways that we've helped students learn throughout the years. You'll find there's a mix of time-honored traditional ways to learn and ways that are more unique. Scott, welcome to the studio. Hey.
Thank you. Hey, it's a great topic. That's a tough one. There's a lot of learning out there for sure, isn't there?
Do you feel that people are overwhelmed with the volume of their choices these days?
Yeah, they don't know what they believe because they've been sold, if you only do this, it doesn't change everything. And it can change it for the worse sometimes if you don't know what that is. I mean, just simple things like if you mix more than two colors, you get mud. And it goes on and on. And they're sure that if they mix more than two colors, it'll mess them up.
Yeah, I guess we're digging right into kind of the heart of the matter. Is there a best way to learn, or do you tailor it to each individual?
Well, if you think about anything that you want to do well, think about any topic you want, golfing or whatever, there's always something you just wish you knew. So one of the problems with if they start doing things wrong, it's hard to unlearn some of that stuff. But also, when I say wrong, I mean, it's hard to unlearn things that you have absolutes in your head, people having those little things, the parameters stuck in their head. And I think that one of the biggest problems is we have never learned how to think or see when we start painting. If we don't do that, at least understanding something about it. I mean, I know I threw out the three primaries, for instance. If you mix more than two colors, you get mud. But if you think about blue and yellow make it green, how else do you modify a color than to add red if it's the three primaries? So right away, that concept goes out the door if you're really serious about painting. You have to learn that that's not the truth. And there's things that you'd be sold. It's just a thing, it's just trying to find out what's real for you or what isn't.
I think when too many rules get in the way, we lose sight of that original creativity. Yeah, I get pretty excited when I teach beginners with enthusiasm. Those are some of my favorite students. Oh, I'm not supposed to have favorites.
Yeah.
I love that enthusiasm. It's like being back in kindergarten. Look, Mom, I made a mark. A favorite saying of yours is strength with limitations. This is good because you balance a little bit of the hard work. Then you mix that with the joy and the fun. And to me, when you have the right ratio, that mix becomes a really great way to learn.
Yeah, that's great. I think, the truth is like even the sport of basketball, for instance, when you're just throwing the basketball up and there's all kinds of ways. You can do it this way, you can do it that way. You start throwing it up and you're not making it. You might want to change the way you're thinking. And there's ways of doing it that make you more accurate. When you're more accurate, it's a lot more fun.
I think you called it practice versus performance. I heard that from you.
Yeah.
And some of that is the sports analogy of targeting the thing that you are working at or lacking, let's just say it. And then that specific target can lead to a lot more creativity and can pay off dividends.
Well, preparing at the highest level to me means learning before you ever touch it. I mean, it's not a bad plan. It works in everything else. We think you're going to have a lot more fun if you understand something about it rather than just throwing your emotions into it. The more you understand about painting, the more fun it is because you can try things within those things, within parameters. And everything's got parameters. So you got to understand where you're walking into before you can actually do well with it.
But what about the person that just picks up a beginner set and they're like, okay, I'm ready to learn. Yep. Where do I start? And I heard the Scott guy might be a good teacher.
I think there's a whole lot of importance in exploring. But along with exploring and actually just having fun and letting your emotions go with it, you'll learn in there what your parameters might be. I think you have to have both. I think you have to have a playtime to where you just experiment all the time. And then you'll learn, okay, now I want to tighten this thing up and say, what do I want to do with this idea? And I think that's really important. I think people just learning the medium by playing is huge.
To foster that playtime. No, I agree. I think you and I are in accord in that respect. But I do remember at one point understanding more about your teaching. And then, so I was in your workshop. You were in my workshop. Those were fun experiences. I just really appreciated your teaching approach, which was different than mine. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the differences in how we teach and either what we learned from each other or maybe how we're still growing or future plans for growing our online program.
Well, I've told you this before. One of the things I've noticed and you do is what's fascinating to me is how you start, full well, you have an idea in mind. I want to suggest that most people can't do that. I think it's really difficult for people to understand that you can't just start a painting without some concept, and you have a concept before you start. You don't just throw paint at that thing. I mean,
well, you're too nice because sometimes I'm
No.
pouring paint.
well, no, but I mean, you understand that you're gonna have to repaint. You understand that this whole thing is a moving target, it's malleable. But
Yeah.
you do think about placement. How big is your tree? How big are your trees? Or what scale and proportion? How does the composition look? Even though you're going straight to the emotion side of it when you start, you have that graphic semi decided up there. And you're going to move shapes a little bit here and there, but you know where the placement is. And some people don't think about placement before they ever start. They throw the emotion in and don't have it, anything.
It's fun to hear you describe it, but I feel like that was, here's my problem. I don't like to sketch. I don't like to plan because I feel like it diminishes some of the power of the finished painting. And so I feel like I've found a way a bit around that. I couldn't go at that problem, so I had to go sideways.
I thought we're not going to BS each other here. Because what I've seen is you pull out watercolors, you do all kinds of stuff, little things, but they're big. They're little things that actually contribute to your idea, and then you go. And I beg to differ. I've been around it. I've watched you.
Okay. Well, I've also watched you do a demo, and everybody in the room is super quiet. And then later you're like, what happened? Were people falling asleep? And I'm like, no, they were just so impressed with what you did. And you're like, oh, really? Like you get involved in what you're doing and you build from the masses and everything. Yeah. How did he do that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how much structure versus exploration do you have when you're fostering learning for people?
I really come at it structure based first. I really am an advocate of you learn to see, you're going to be painting better. And I think the playtime is huge. And you got to do a little bit of something to understand what you might need. After that, I'll say, okay, and if you're failing, let's look at the composition through 3 values first. Let's simplify this thing. You have to see it in your mind's eye. And if you can't see it, I don't know what it'll take other than the simple education on a few things that are really going to help.
Well, there's playtime as a beginner. And then the more people paint, then they start to realize, I think something's wrong, but I'm not sure. And maybe there's a bit of a dash of fear with that perhaps I'm missing out on something. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And you've had to see, paint trees and look like the tree blew up a few times to realize, okay, I'm going to have to organize the shape of this thing.
I do like the intuition. It's like, let's get out our stuff and play. But in order for me to be an instructor, I have to illustrate ideas. I have to give students prompts. It could be a creative prompt, or it could be, hey, we're going to do 90% intuition, but we need this 10% of structure. So we're going to look at, for example, shapes of trees today. That might be a way of trying to channel some of that intuition. Are we talking about why most artists would be stuck now? Like these things that you think are working and then all of a sudden they're not working?
You have to do it. You have to fail. And that's just painting. But I think like your parameters, you were talking about like learning to paint trees.
Yeah.
You realize the need there. You've seen it over and over. And then once they realize that, then they start simplifying their understanding about how many different ways they can think of trees so that they can apply that information to the next painting. It just saves them a lot of time and a lot of understanding. Edgar Payne used to talk about there's three ways we learn: accumulate knowledge, study nature often, and practice continually. And he talked about all 3 of them being really important to the process of developing as a painter.
He's a fantastic one to learn from.
I critique my work through their words and say, oh, that's what they meant by that. Oh, I see, I did it.
You're taking a universal statement that somebody 100 years ago made. It still applies to you today. So you're providing your own spin and own filter on that.
Yeah, and it didn't have a whole lot of spin. I mean, these guys were like really direct. They said, too many lights on all forms or planes. Carlson said, too many lights on all forms or planes causes more paintings to come to grief than any other cause. That's a pretty big statement. That okay.
Yeah.
So I would find many times when I over accentuate everything, too many lights on all forms or planes causes more paintings to fall apart. That was me.
Oh,
so that was a pretty... That was a pretty absolute statement. He also talked about good color in a picture, what that meant to him. And, it goes on and on. But those things were absolutes to them and they were important to him.
How about we talk about perhaps a very difficult subject, holding on to an old idea or the resistance to approaching something new or starting from scratch? That would be me with value. I came to you looking for that information because I saw that in your work. Not, I want to paint like this person, but I thought, wow, here's somebody who is so knowledgeable about value, I feel like I had to do some hard work to understand value.
Yeah. Well, you're not the only one. I would say, so just so we can be on the same level playing field, when I thought I understood values, I didn't understand values at all. I was sure that I understood values, and I really didn't understand it. Because secretly I knew that if I could figure out color, my problems would be solved.
So
that wasn't the case.
are we talking about color being basically the problem child in the room?
Talking about values do all the work and color gets the credit. It's like, not that color is not important. It's hugely important. And the way you use it is very important. But you see your values, Christine, you see those and you put them in, you're directly to them. Some people don't see the value of it. They see the color. They see its inherent color so much they don't understand its inherent value, though. The importance of it is you're seeing both of them. You're seeing the value and the color. What they're not seeing is sometimes the value. They look into a shadow, for instance, they see how green it might be, but they're not comparing the green of the shadow to every other green to understand this relationship.
So it's twofold. It's the part to the whole, the shadow of the tree to the entire painting.
Yeah.
But it's also my creative hat is on. Now I'm going to step back and check my value.
Yeah. Well, you see the need for a shadow. You see the need for, so you understand values then if because I can tell because of how you're painting. You're seeing it. You don't necessarily put words around value all the time as much as you focus on color. But you're able to because you still see through it its inherent value, though. And if not, you adjust your value as per the need. And that's a lot of why Sargent painted in the middle values. He stayed in those middle values and then you pull out his darks later so you can get that key in that shadow.
Yeah, that's so interesting when we've looked at Sargent paintings in person to try to tease apart how he created that.
Boy, the fascinating thing is that you're getting there, the same kind of a different approach, but you see the values, you see the structure. And I was in the way that I didn't see values. I was in the way.
Well, when do you think you learned value? And don't say it's still ongoing. I'm not going
to. I will, because 90% of my problems are usually value related. When I'm having an issue with painting, it doesn't mean I can't make them work, but I can make it work better when I'm clear about my value structure. And it might take me a little while because it's like you and I talk about, it's like blasting rocks sometimes. And sometimes it's just like, oh, finally got there. Painting has to be bad because it took me forever. But you actually start understanding, oh, I kept working with it until I figured it out. And now, once you figure it out, it's easier to replicate it or try to get your key so that you can go from there. And that's all I'm doing.
And key for viewers, is it going to be mostly light? Is it going to be mostly medium? Is it going to be mostly dark? Or you can play with the range in between. So you're playing with either your groupings value, the wide value, or tighter value on the scale.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. We only have 10 cubes on the value scale.
I know, but how much difference it makes. The one thing I've realized too, when the higher the key, how important the darks are.
Yeah.
Also the opposite, the darker your key, how important your lights are. And that's what we're talking about. All the training is super important, but from those parameters, you can learn a lot, but there's more than one way of thinking, for sure.
I love that. So you take the universal knowledge or the collected knowledge, and then you just take that in and you run with it.
Yeah. He's borrowing and building. Creativity.
Yeah. Well, you've taught for over 30 years now. And so do you think your approach to giving students information has changed over the years? What would be a highlight or two of how you like to present information? I
realized what they didn't know. Like a lot of people that have painted for many, many years, like there's some I've had, they've had 10 to 15 years of just painting and they did not have anything together. It just didn't work. And so I had to take them back to basics of black and white. Can I show you?
Yeah.
Okay. When I'm outdoors, for instance, if I see a subject like this, how do I fit things together? What I do is take what are my darker masses and how big are they? And what I typically want to do with students, and I do it myself all the time, is to see it in black and white. What is the value range of that light of the trees here compared to the background? Then I'll break it down. I'll look at it simply like color patterns. This is just a blurred image. But what value is it in first? This is a little darker than the sky, for instance, stuff like that.
That's what life looks like without my glasses.
Exactly. It helps a lot, right?
It does.
It does. And that's why people say squint, you blur your eyes or whatever. You have to see this. And I'll even do it in black and white so that you can see patterning. You can see dark and white patterning more. The similarities, for instance, of value between this and the road. So then I'll break the patterns down, like how big the mass and how dark do I want it? Like just look at the middle value, for instance, this value in dark, the darker value. That's going to hold a shape in the painting. How much of that is going to dominate? How big the shape is a thing that you're going to decide. It's not handed to you.
I love these studies. These are great.
And I try to think about them in 3 values. And again, it's not a best way. It's just a way of thinking to help you dissect what's in front of you first. And basically, Christine, you're doing that anyway. And I want to suggest that some people can't see it this way. So that's why I take them this route first. I had to learn it this way, and I still do. When I get into problems, I come right back to this. As you know, when you're trying to break these things down, there's a lot of ways of thinking. Shapes, how are you going to break these shapes down? Like I'll take trees and simplify them, but they'll start with kind of a rough, squared off look, and shapes that I see in placement on the painting, on the canvas. I mean, how dark and light something is. So I'll think in terms of, so this is the black and white, like how high the key is, how middle. Those accents will read a lot stronger if I have darker shadows. But sometimes I just love really high key paintings. And I find that if I paint and I think this way, at least I get that understanding pretty clear before I start. I can choose which value key I want to be in, but if I don't think that way, I can never arrive at where I want to go.
How do you still pick your favorite shapes? That's something that I have trouble with. I don't feel like I nail that down until the very end.
And I think that's the case. What I do, this is what I'll do outdoors more. But what I find is if I get into trouble, I don't know. I'll change it later a lot. I'll just keep working with that idea. I don't have a best way.
Let's see that finished painting. Yeah, that's awesome.
But I'll show you how I start again. Let me see. So here's another one. This concept right here, here's my drawing for it. I want to see where my shadow shapes are. I want to place them. Where are my trunks? That sort of thing. So if I can see it kind of in black and white where it's going to be, I don't always work this out outdoors, but I find myself reworking it indoors to get this more interesting or not. Okay. That's a black and white marker on the panel. I don't always do it that way, but that's just to show you what I'm thinking initially. And I'm suggesting you might think the same way. You think of where your shadows are, you kind of see them, and you kind of think of where you want to put them. And then you move it as you feel necessary, right? And that's what studies are to me. But what I try to do is break it down into simple patterning. Like for instance, let me show you color first. The light of these trees are the same value as the light of the sky. This one on the far right isn't done. It's just a shadow pattern. But in 2 values, I've got the sky and the light of the trees the same value. And you can see it in black and white here. It's just a change of color.
Yeah, that's like magic.
It just helps me to see clearly where I want to place my value structure different ways, right? You take it apart in different ways so that you can decide how you want to do it.
Those were great examples of how you build a painting from the thumbnail study up. Would you say there's shortcuts in how to learn?
I think the only shortcut I know is black and white, to understand clearly that values, how important values are. And not everybody, because we want that fast fix. You know,
we do.
We want to learn it quick.
Today, art learning is so fast. I make my best attempt and I don't nail it. So what would be... You just described painting to me. That's it. I mean, you're going to make decisions to go, well, warmer, cooler, lighter, darker. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of small inspired decisions. They're slight shifts in value, slight shifts in color, and the relationship of them. But understanding it clearly through black and white is going to be the key to faster learning, I think. Seeing it through black and white doesn't mean you're always going to paint it. You know, you don't always have to do every one of those charts just to see it. You have to learn it to see it. I want to agree with you that black and white is the answer. But for me, I think I would just shut down and I wouldn't be able to grow as an artist because of the exploratory nature. It's almost like I needed to go off on a color tangent and then come back to black and white.
I don't disagree. And that also, you have to, it'll feel uncomfortable. Doesn't mean you want to do it, but it'll stick.
Yeah.
It'll still stick in there. And, even though you don't visit that all the time, it's still stuck. Yeah. It's a different way of getting there, but you're getting there.
There is a copy this. I'm doing my demo, especially learning online. There's this idea of let's go through step 1 through 50, and now you've made a painting. What do you think of that way of learning? You have to learn things in chunks, in my opinion. You don't have to take it all from A to Z. If you learn to do it from A to Z, it's going to help you. But I think one of the most important parts is playing and then coming back and refining. I mean, you still got to shoot a lot of basketballs to go, I suck at that. Let me get better. What can I do? Well, maybe quit shooting the hook shot. Maybe start learning how you can use all the way through your hips and everything. So in learning, isn't that a point of real frustration where you're like, pat your head, rub your tummy, and sing the value scale? Yeah.
People don't want it. I agree with that. Nobody wants it, but I think a
It
little of
feels
it.
like you're juggling a lot of mechanical ideas.
But if I learn a few things like slowing my run down to throw the javelin, I slow it down and then I feel what happens and then I see what happens. I have to take it apart to understand what I need to do. And that doesn't mean you have to stay with it and throw dirt on your head and say, I'm going to be here forever. I hate this. It means you have to understand it, assimilate it, and realize how you're going to use it. And some people are just going to move on from there, but at least it's in there. And that doesn't mean you're not going to keep revisiting it. Just like we talked about transparent watercolor, I wanted to build back toward more transparent. Gouache got me back to real heavy paint. I use it to define my oil painting, work to inform my oil painting, but I come back and I want to do some different things. When I see Sargent doing it, it makes me change.
So I like that idea of breaking things into smaller chunks and less about the now everybody fasten your seatbelts. I'm going to make a demo for you and please copy. Any encouraging thoughts for students on how to explore more?
Yeah, just explore outdoors. I think exploring is a huge part. It's just a big part of it. It's like part of the adventure is everything.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.